It's the 16th of February. Snow is falling outside. My journey is over. I'm back home again. I find myself asking involuntarily, where is my home? Here in my studio among all my pictures? Or out there, always in search of what I've never seen before? The only thing I know for sure is that my luggage will always keep luring me back out on the road, like it did on this journey. I passed through regions of bizarre beauty, as if from another age. I met people who were poor, but rich in laughter and full of life. And in the middle of nowhere, I met myself. My path led me to the edge of the world, or maybe I should write, to the place where the world began. I traveled through space and time, to the roots of our existence, to where everything began, in the heart of Africa. Monday, January 2nd. Almost in a daze, I try to get a handle on the activity all around me by putting my first impressions to paper. What am I even looking for here, on this continent forsaken by the rest of the world, where famines, epidemics, misery, and hopelessness are all mixed up together? I paint over some 18th century IOUs from my wealthy homeland. This and that unpaid debt is meticulously entered on their lines. How ironic in a country that has to run up massive national debts just to get by. Djenné, Republic of Mali, January 4th. In reality, I always have the same reasons for taking my trips: escape or seeking, or a mixture of both. When the days and the faces start turning gray at home, I set out in search of light and colors. Then I leave our high-tech world with its artificial stress behind and go on a journey of discovery and partake of the most precious thing we've got: time. This morning, Somalia Dokubo is sewing a no boo-boo for a customer of his, while Ahmed Kaita conducts his usual classes in an improvised Quran school on Djenné's Market Square. I need a photo of myself for a supplementary visa to Algeria. The local photographer, Saika Mobuto, makes a carefully handcrafted portrait with his own version of a Polaroid. I've had enough of the noise and bustle of Djenné and hop the next bus for the land of the Dogon. January 8th, Falaise de Bandiagara. Reports of a mysterious culture in this remote area of Mali have aroused my curiosity. I make my way to the place where the earth has split open and left a 200-meter-high scar across the savannah. Along the face of the cliff, I spot unusual shapes, stuck into holes in the rock like outsized swallows' nests. Over 400 years ago, these were most likely the homes of the Telem, thought to have been a diminutive, pygmy-like people. Their adobe houses have been preserved through the centuries, protected from the elements by the cliffs. My odyssey becomes a journey into the past. I'm left awestruck by this encounter with a completely unknown history. What destinies, what tragedies must have been played out inside these walls? Where did the Telem come from? And where did they disappear to? What could have caused them to retreat upward, to live at such dizzying, nearly inaccessible heights? Was it the fear of predators, of hostile neighbors, or of the approaching Dogon? In the Dogon language, Telem means something like the ones we encountered there. This encounter took place when the Dogon themselves sought refuge among the cliffs from the encroachment of Islam and drove out the pygmy people. My primary objective is the conical roofed hut villages of the Dogon, a people whose pre-Islamic culture has been preserved largely intact, due greatly to their geographical isolation. Yatome and her sister thresh millet, one of their many daily chores. In Africa, most of the work is done by the women. Almost all the rights and privileges are reserved for the men. The dull pounding of the mortars coming from every quarter gives me the feeling of a powerfully beating pulse that sustains all life in this desolate region. The groundwater level has dropped alarmingly in recent years. Only with a Herculean effort are the farmers and herders able to eke out a living on this desiccated ground. On the banks of the few rivers and streams, the farmers have piled up soil to form parcels of land where they grow onions. The Dogon can earn a modest supplement to their subsistence farm production by selling dried onion balls at the nearest market. They keep more livestock than they need as security against the inevitable next drought. But the animals only consume more water and overgraze the scant vegetation, encouraging the relentless encroachment of the desert. The children of the villages still make a music all their own on homemade instruments, but for how much longer? Even with all the harbingers of impending doom, the world of the Dogon seems to me in a strange way indestructible, resting as it does on ageless tradition. The elderly are fully integrated into village life and make their contribution, however modest, to the community. But the migration to the cities has set in here too, and fewer of the young Dogon remain to found new families here at the edge of the escarpment. The African looms still rattle throughout the villages. Mohammed Somito, one of the few men I've seen doing any work here, weaves one of the typical narrow strips of fabric, later to be sewn together in larger bolts. The other men have gathered in the tuguna, an open-sided council hut where they can discuss the issues of the day in the cool shade, out of the blazing afternoon sun. Seydou is a shaman. Every day he carefully traces out his diagrams and fills them with symbols made of soil, pebbles, and pieces of wood. Only he knows their meaning. He returns the next morning after the fox has left its tracks to read the future and predict the weather and individual destinies. Seydou is highly respected by all in the village. Tuesday, January 10th. The last petroleum lamps in the village have been put out. I sit under the crystal clear, starry sky and contemplate the highly complex mythology of this mysterious people. Their creation myth, their animistic religion, and their amazing knowledge of astronomy all have an effect on their daily lives. The next day, I'll go in search of the initiation site in Songo, where the Dogon have recorded their creation myth and cosmology on the rock faces to be passed on to coming generations. That is where the boys are prepared for the circumcision ritual. My hand tries to recreate the contours of these ancient mythological symbols, and I realize that we non-Africans, with our reasoning, have little hope of gaining access to this world of gods and spirits. Even so, I feel the presence of the Dogon ancestors. January 12th. At last I see it with my own eyes. The river of the gods, the Niger, the lifeline of West Africa, third longest river on the continent. At one time it was thought to be an arm of the Nile. Now, as I stand on its banks, I'm hit with a wave of color and commotion. In the river port of Mopti, I board a pirogue headed upstream toward Timbuktu. Today is a festival day, celebrating the end of fasting during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. I stroll around the harbor and try to overlook the piles of trash and block out the stench. I want to preserve in me the beautiful, positive side of Africa. Africa tends to conjure up images of human disasters. Starving children with distended bellies, the AIDS epidemic, and poverty. But I see another kind of picture, the picture of an irrepressible, positively minded community where everybody needs and supports everyone else. This is one of the centers of trade in the white gold of the Sahara, salt. At one time, it was exchanged for real gold, today for African francs. Caravans bring the salt out of the desert as far as Timbuktu. Then it is carried here by ship. Pharaoh rules over the river. Pharaoh is the river god. He has the color of harvest rice, and his hair is long and black. For untold ages, Pharaoh and his children have lived in underwater villages in the river. Should anyone invoke the wrath of Pharaoh, he sends a whirlpool to suck their vessel under the water. And so, you must appease Pharaoh with an offering. January 14th. For 2 days now, I've been traveling northward on a pinnace toward the Sahara. The river has spread into a vast lake. I'm losing my sense of time. It seems like months have passed since I left home. I start to mark the route I've traveled so far by the pictures I've painted. With each picture, we've taken a big step closer to Timbuktu. The banks glide past like an endless band. Only once if we stop to rest. Last night, some women made a huge bonfire and baked their air-dried clay pots in it. Here, making pottery is women's work. The men go fishing. Today, they'll load all their goods onto the pirogues to take them to Mopti to sell them at the market there. The entire community will share in the earnings from this communal labor.
September 7th, 1853. After we had rounded this low spit, we came all at once into the middle of that majestic stream that has aroused the keenest interest of the European for many years now. To have discovered the true nature of it, I reckon among the prime achievements of my so perilous journey. At long last, I spotted the city of Timbuktu. The first impression made by this destination I had striven for so long was not a very favorable one. As the sky was dark and overcast, the dark and dirty clay shapes of the city could scarcely be distinguished from the surrounding rubble and sand.
Although the German Africa explorer Heinrich Barth came here long before me, we were both centuries too late. Too late to witness Timbuktu in its heyday as a cultural center of Mohammedan learning. Today, the fabled city is but slowly being swallowed by the desert. I came too late to see the as many as 12,000 camels that once came here every year, carrying salt to be traded for gold. In 1853, Heinrich Barth was the first European to arrive here, where he lived for 8 months. As a Christian, he was in constant danger of his life. Even then, very little was left of the city's one-time wealth. Only the bristling spire of the Jingaber Mosque from the time of the powerful Malayan king Kankan Musa gives any hint of the splendid metropolis that was. But the aura of mystery and adventure surrounding Timbuktu survives in its name. Nothing but a few worm-eaten fragments are left of the trove of manuscripts that was one of the city's great treasures. January 28th. Now I have left Timbuktu, the edge of the world, far behind me, and push onward along the tracks of the salt caravans of the Tuareg into the heart of the Sahara. I want to go to where it all began, where man went from hunter to farmer, and where the earth permits a rare glimpse of the hour of its birth. I'm on my way to where the world began.
هذا سميت ذكرتي
لا تفسي
والله
هذا سميت هوندا واحدة تفسي هي قدت جرسيلة
ترى بيوم
يدتو هوندا رغيج مكشي الوقت نيري واغيمون أجرت 80 لازم لي طيش ترى
والله تيري هذا سميت ذكرتي
لا تفسي
والله
أيوة تفسي دي أخري ما أترى تمون ضروري
تمون هودا
دي أغلى واحد اللي راقي سنان.
This evening there's a celebration. The women from a village nearby have come to join in. A Tuareg doesn't need any excuse to sing and dance. Every day Allah grants him is reason enough. January 30th. My guides have become my friends. The isolation out here has a way of forging alliances. As their guest, I'm guaranteed their personal protection, and seldom have I felt as safe as I do in their company. Today we set out with our dromedaries to cross the Hoggar Mountains. We'll ascend to an altitude of almost 3,000 meters at temperatures near freezing, without a compass or maps. February 1st. I feel as if I'd penetrated to the interior of the planet. Concepts of space and time seem to crumble into dust. Water. Never has it seemed so precious as it does here in the middle of this parched, hostile, dust and rock desert. The cliff opens up, and this elixir of life gives rise to an oasis. The flowers shoot out of the ground overnight, as if they had long been waiting impatiently for this chance to grow. This evening, Daki, our cook, makes a Tuareg-style tagila, and I can't help but think of it as a sheer luxury in this isolation. In the morning, I set off in search of the traces of our ancestors. I'm curious to see the petroglyphs they made several millennia ago, at a time when the Sahara was still a green paradise, with forests and lakes and wildlife. This world, so unknown to me, draws me irresistibly and spurs me to go on in search ever further. When I return from this journey, I'll be a different man from the one who first set out on it.
فرونت وين داتي دمي سرغاسن كورانتيس وين صدرستن الليلن هي الشيلة سنيا المجيون ما دين الله ين الله
February 10th. I'm going to try to paint this indescribable light. I must capture it. This light.